Hi everyone, welcome to this week's video. I'm Olivia and today we're going to be going through some fundamental and super useful exercises that are going to help you to start improving your drawing skills today. Now, these exercises are really great because they're not only straightforward, but they're also going to be working so many different muscles that are going to be building your skills in the long term. And doing these exercises regularly is really going to help you to start to improve when you're drawing anything. So in these exercises, we're going to be working your muscles for your motor skills, your attention to accuracy and detail, your confidence when drawing lines. We're going to be improving your ability to deconstruct complex forms into simple shapes, your ability to understand perspective, and to use that perspective to then inform the way that you draw things later on. These exercises are so fundamental to building the foundation that you need to start to really improve your skills as an artist. So without further ado, let's get started and I'll show you these exercises now. I often hear people saying they can't even draw a straight line. So to tackle this problem, we've got this very simple first exercise that's just going to get your motor skills developing in this area. The aim of this exercise is to take a blank piece of paper and absolutely fill it with all manner of straight lines in varying different directions and groups. You can draw these lines close together, you can draw them far apart, you can make them long or short, you can make them shaded or curved, whatever you prefer. But the aim here is just to try practicing drawing lines with accuracy and getting your hands more used to drawing lines with confidence. The real aim here is to start developing the skills that allow you to stop having such wobbly lines when you first start drawing, which is a problem that a lot of beginners often have. This next exercise is quite similar to the first one, except this time we're going to be building on our ability to draw circles, concentric shapes, and arcs. So take your blank page and draw a group of concentric circles. And once you finish doing that, nice and accurately as possible, draw a second group of concentric circles, and so on. The aim here is to absolutely fill your page with concentric circles. Just really have a bit of fun here, experiment with how different your accuracy is when you're going slowly, when you're going fast, and see if you can start to develop a bit of a stronger motor skills to draw the circles more quickly as you progress with this exercise. You should find that by the end, you find it a lot more easy to draw circles and arcs quickly. Now that you've warmed up your muscles for drawing lines, arcs, and circles, it's time to put that into practice and start drawing a frenzy of different shapes. In this exercise, I want you to experiment with using these various elements to build as many shapes as you can think of, both in a two-dimensional and three-dimensional form. You can think about using arcs, circles, and lines to squash shapes, elongate shapes, to create three-dimensional forms. They don't need to be very accurate at this point. The whole point of this exercise is to use your imagination and understand how applying these basic elements can allow you to build more complex forms. Our drawings can never be realistic until we have a true understanding of perspective. So in this exercise, we're going to start building on some basic understanding of perspective and practicing our application of it. So we're going to start off by drawing one horizontal horizon line, and on either side of that horizon line, placing two small crosses to represent the vanishing point. Then we can draw in a single vertical construction line perpendicular to our horizon line. This line represents the edge of the cube that is the closest to us, and we'll be using this as a reference to then create the construction lines which converge towards the vanishing points on either side of that edge. These converging construction lines represent the way that the cube's proportions will warp, depending on our perspective. You can then start drawing in some outer edges of the cube, which will lie between the horizon line and the construction lines that you've just created. You can experiment with how moving the cube to a high perspective or a low perspective affects the way that you see the shape and which sides of the cube you're able to see. You can also experiment here with creating a variety of different cubes within one construction and seeing how the variety of cubes that are overlapping will change depending on their angle and height in respect to the vanishing points. This exercise is really great in helping us to understand how form changes dynamically depending on our perspective, and can start to create a bit more realism when we're drawing actual objects that we see in front of us and from our imagination. Once you've done quite a few experimentations with 2-point perspective, you can also create some single-point perspective experimentations. Start by drawing a single point and a horizontal line that goes directly through that point. This horizontal line is the horizon line. From the vanishing point, you can then start drawing a series of radial construction lines that represent how the various forms within the scene will be distorted as you approach the vanishing point. Eventually, you should get to the point that you can sketch a form in perspective without using construction lines from the vanishing points. You can also use perspective cubes as a reference to start building in more complex shapes. On one of the faces of the cube, you can start drawing in your more complex shape, and then extend those lines out following the perspective lines of the cube. Now that we understand how to draw basic elements such as lines and circles, and use those to construct a variety of different shapes in a three-dimensional space using perspective, we can now start to observe objects around us in the world. Observing objects in front of you, you can start to use these basic principles to start constructing rudimentary shapes that make up the overall form of that object. Whatever the object is in front of you, it doesn't really matter. The principle here is that you're learning to deconstruct a complex form into more simple forms. Once you've successfully constructed a few drawings of complex forms using these basic shapes as an underlay, the challenge is now to prove to yourself that you really understand what's going on with these shapes within this complex object. Try and draw the same object a couple of times from different perspectives to prove to yourself that you understand how to manipulate the various geometry that's going on here within this complex form. I recommend starting off with some relatively simple forms and then progressing into more complex forms as you become more comfortable with this exercise. The fun thing about this one is there is really no limit to what you can draw with this. You can deconstruct and draw animals, people, plants, objects, buildings, you name it, you can try it. The only limit here is recognizing and understanding the various shapes that make up these complex forms and breaking them down into the appropriate shapes using the correct perspective. The sixth and final exercise is super essential for helping you to develop an understanding of translating something you can see in front of you into shapes and lines on a piece of paper when drawing. So you're going to take a ruler and draw a line down the middle of your page, and then you're just going to draw a continuous line with your pen or pencil from the top to the bottom of the symmetry line. The shape that you draw really doesn't matter too much. The important thing is that now on the other side of that line, you're going to try and exactly copy what you can see on the other side of the symmetry line. As carefully as possible, try and make an exact copy of the line that you've drawn on the opposite side of this symmetry line. This exercise can prove more difficult than expected, but it really helps you to develop your understanding of recognizing shapes and translating them into lines on a drawing. Oftentimes, beginners can get a little bit confused with drawing something the way they expect it to look rather than the way that it actually looks in front of them. So this exercise is really helpful for getting out of that bad habit and trying to just draw things exactly as you see them in front of you. I hope you guys found this video useful. If you did, don't forget to let me know in the comment section below if you've been trying out some of these exercises and they've been helping you. Please do let me know how you're finding them and if they are helping you to improve your skills. I really guarantee that if you do stay consistent with using these techniques, just 20 minutes every single day, just practicing a couple of things, you will really see massive improvements in your drawing skills over time. If you are feeling ready to tackle something a little bit more complicated than these exercises and you're feeling really confident with the foundations that we've laid out today, then I have created another tutorial which is building upon these fundamentals and using them to build something as complex as the human form. So if you are interested in improving your skills even another level, then I definitely recommend that you click the video that's on screen right now, follow that tutorial and see how much you can apply this fundamental principle that we've learned today into something as complex as the human figure. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll see you next week. Bye.